Hello and welcome to Italy. I'm here to give you some information about the place you are at the moment and about the reason you are here. Then I'll explain what happens in Italy when a person applies for international protection. First, I wish to inform you about the fact that the international rules and Italian law can guarantee protection to the person who was forced to flee his country because he or she suffered persecution or risked to suffer persecution because of his or her nationality, race, religion, political opinion, or belonging to a certain social group. The persecutions are, for example, threats of death, torture, unfair deprivation of personal freedom, serious violations of human rights. When you risk to be sentenced to death, to be subject to torture or other forms of violence, or when your life is in danger for an armed conflict or a generalized violence. The name of the place you are at the moment is Protection Appliers Welcome Center, which gives shelter to the people who apply for international protection. The center is managed by an institution which offers qualified personnel in order to give medical, legal, and psychological assistance. Speak to them if you have any doubt, need explanation or advice. There are also the interpreters who could help you to communicate. It is particularly important that you inform the personnel if you are expecting a baby, if you have physical or psychological problems, if you were subject to violence. It is important to inform the personnel about any particular need, also related to religion and culture. At the Protection Appliers Welcome Center, you have the right to medical and emergency care, to the lodging which provides for separate room for men and women, and to stay together with your family members. You have the right to contact a representative of the United Nations Refugee Agency, lawyers, or other refugee protection associations. You have the right to be visited by your relatives or other people who are authorized to enter the center. Those who have no identification or travel documents or who have submitted false documents are admitted to these centers in order to be identified. In such cases, their stay in the center is not longer than 20 days. Those who were found to have irregular positions at the moment of their entry in Italy or stayed in Italy irregularly are also entitled to stay in these centers. In such cases, the stay at the center is not longer than 35 days. You are allowed to leave the center during the day, respecting the set hours. You are allowed to leave the center for longer periods if you have serious personal problems, or for family reasons, or for the reasons regarding your application for protection. In these cases, though, you have to have an authorization. You may apply for such authorization through the center's personnel. You must know that if you do not respect leaving and entry hours, if you leave the center without an authorization, your lodging conditions will end. In this case, the decision on your application for protection might be taken without your hearing. Attention! While leaving the center, it is very important to inform the center's police and to give them the address of the place you are going to. If you are under 18 and are staying in Italy without your family or relatives, you must inform the center's operators about these conditions, as you can't stay in these centers together with the adults, but have to stay in a special center for underaged, more appropriate to your age. In order to help you, there will be appointed a guardian, a person who will take care of you, who will be responsible for you under legal point of view, and who will have to confirm your application for international protection. If you wish, it is possible to try and find your family without the authority of your country of origin being informed. Have the right to go to school. In order to verify your age, the Italian authorities might decide to carry on a medical test upon your consent. If you think that your age is different from the test's result, please inform the operator. Now let's talk about the application for international protection, about the way the application is submitted, about the application examining procedure, and about the answers you might get. The application for international protection can be submitted to the border police upon arrival in Italy, or to the Questura, that is, the police immigration office, or the police office located at the center. The application for protection is personal, and every member of the family must submit an autonomous application. If you have underage children staying with you at this center, your international protection application is valid also for them. After submitting your application for international protection, you have the right to remain in Italy for the period necessary for your application to be examined. You can formalize your application for international protection only after you have been identified and your photograph has been registered. The police must take your photograph and your fingerprints. If you have your ID documents with you, give them to the police, who will keep the originals and give you a copy of them. After being identified, the police will give you an appointment for filling in your protection application form. It is important to know that a European Union regulation establishes which is the country responsible to examine non-EU citizens' international protection application. You can submit your application for international protection in the first EU country where you were identified by the authorities, or the country which granted you an entry visa, a residence or transit permit, or the country where at least one member of your family resides who has already been granted refugee status or has submitted an application for international protection. If you are underage and if you are here without your family, you can apply for the protection where at least one of the members of your family is legally residing. In case Italy is indicated as the country having the authority to examine your application for international protection, you cannot leave Italy before your application is examined. In fact, if in spite Italy is considered the state for your application to be examined, you travel to another EU country and apply for international protection there, you might be sent back to Italy. When you are called to fill in your international protection application form, there will be the police personnel and, if needed, also an interpreter speaking your mother tongue or a language which you are able to communicate in. You will have to fill in an application form called Modello C3, where you have to write down your personal information, the phases of your journey starting from the moment you left your motherland until when you arrived in Italy, and the reasons you had to leave your country. If you have difficulty in reading or writing, ask the help of an interpreter or the center's personnel. If there are some documents you want to attach to your international protection application, but you haven't got them with you while you are filling in the application form, inform the center's operators about it. You can also attach to your international protection application form your personal story and the reasons you were forced to leave your country. When you complete your application form, the police will give you a copy of this form, that is, Modello C3. Remember that this document is very important because it certifies the submitting of your international protection application in Italy. The information reported on C3 form is confidential and will not be transmitted to the authorities of your homeland or to the other people unrelated to your international protection application. All the communications regarding your international protection application, for example, the call for the interview in front of the police or the commission, documentation requirements, transfer to another country, Commission decision have to be made in your mother tongue, or if not possible, in English or French or Spanish or Arabic. Now let's talk about your international protection application examining. Your international protection application will be examined by the Territorial Commission for International Protection Granting. The commission is made of 4 members. 2 representatives from the Ministry of the Internal Affairs, 1 representative from the local administration, 1 representative from the UNHCR, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. International protection application examining takes place through a hearing. You will be called for the hearing by a written convocation made by the police. You can ask the hearing to be postponed for health or other serious problems. You have to inform the center's operators or communicate it in written form to the police. Eventual health problems must be certified by a medical doctor. During the interview with the commission, you have the right to speak in your mother tongue or in a language which would let you express yourself and be understood. There will be, therefore, an interpreter who will speak in your mother tongue or in a language you'll choose to communicate in. If you have any problems with the interpreter during the interview, please inform the commission about it. During the interview, you can be assisted by a lawyer. You can also ask to be assisted by a specialist in case of particular needs, like, for example, particular health problems. During the interview, you will be asked questions about your personal data, information on your family, information about the journey which brought you to Italy from your homeland, the reasons which made you leave your country of origin, and your fears in case you are forced to go back. All your statements during the interview in front of the commission are confidential. All the people present at the interview are bound by this confidentiality regulations. Whatever you state in front of the commission during the interview will be recorded on a sheet of paper called minutes, which will have to be signed by you, by the interpreter, and by the members of the commission. Before signing the minutes, your statements will be read again in order to verify that whatever you stated was reported correctly. Then you will be given a copy of the minutes. If you are underage, you can have your interview with the commission only in presence of one of your parents or of your guardian. All the statements regarding your protection application have to be in your mother tongue or in one of the following languages: English, French, Spanish, or Arabic. You will be choosing among these languages the one you prefer. Now let's talk about the decisions the Commission might make concerning your protection application. The Commission can make 3 different decisions. In the first case, the Commission might decide to grant you the refugee status, in conformity with the Geneva Convention. By obtaining this status, you will have right to a residence permit valid for 5 years, which can be renewed upon expiry. In the second case, the Commission might grant you a subsidiary protection status because it considers that in case you return to your homeland, you might suffer serious damage. In this case, you will be granted a 3-year renewable residence permit. In any case, if there occur required conditions, residence permit can be converted into residence permit for work reasons. In the third case, the Commission can make a negative decision because it considers that there are no conditions for the refugee status or subsidiary protection. Nevertheless, if the Commission thinks that there are serious humanitarian reasons for which you cannot be deported, it might ask the police to issue a 1-year residence permit for humanitarian reasons. In case of a negative decision or a decision other than the refugee status, you'll have the right to lodge an appeal at the court. For lodging an appeal, it is necessary to have a lawyer. If you cannot afford a lawyer, you may ask the Italian government to pay such expenses. Attention! When you leave the center, it is important to inform the police authorities located in the center and to give them the address of the place you are moving to, especially if you are still expecting to receive the communication about the Territorial Commission decision on the acknowledgement of the international protection. You always have the right to ask to go back to your country of origin in safety and dignity. If you have any problem or if you need more information, please contact the personnel at the center.